just going to check quickly that my audio is okay. If you are joining me live, let me know in the comments, or if you catch the replay, hashtag replay, so that I know that you have been here. And I think it sounds all okay. Yeah, perfect. All right. So welcome to Tune in Tuesday. We have a really perplexing topic of conversation today, and I've titled it The Elephant in the Room because it really feels like the only way that can describe this energy that is present with us today. Last night I had a horrible night's sleep. I found myself trapped in a loop of visions that have been a recurring dream or daydream for some time now. And the overall theme of this daydream, and I say daydream because it's never a dream that I fully experience while I'm asleep. It's definitely something where I'm kind of in between sleep, and it's definitely a vision that I would love to bring to life one day in a book. And so while I was trapped in this loop, it felt like hours. I was in this loop with this vision, and it has a very dystopian type theme where all of my family and I are hidden away in the woods where we are separate from the world. We are hiding from the world. We are, there's this theme that we are having to survive out in the woods because of what's happening in the world. And eventually I fell asleep. And then at about 1:30, my son came in, and he had his phone, and he was really startled. Like, I woke up feeling just as startled as he was, and his phone had been ringing constantly. It was an unknown number. And so when we answered the phone, there was a voice on the other side who was saying, and it was just so creepy, like I still have chills recalling it, and he was like, "Open the back door. Open the back door. I'm at the back door." And he just kept on saying it. And so we hung up, and he called back, and he just said it again. And I, was really startled and afraid. And we turned his phone off because this person, this voiceless person, kept on calling, and we have no idea who he was, but the threatening feeling that came with this person who kept saying, "Just open the door," was terrifying. And so I found it really, really hard to fall back asleep after that. And my mind was then trapped in another loop where my children were at risk, that I kept these thoughts, these visions of bad things happening to my children, to my family, to my loved ones, just kept happening and kept going. Eventually, though, I fell asleep. And this morning I took that experience into my devotion. The dominant fear program that I met with inside of my practice this morning was this fear of opening the back door. And through this process where I was in this primed state, this primed altered state of consciousness to really go to this back door, it was fascinating for me because one was experiencing this fear, this very human fear of wanting to bunker down, lock the doors, place bars around us, escape to this forest with my family where we can be safe. But simultaneously, there was this perspective where I allowed myself to go and open the back door. And throughout this morning, I've been just allowing that to percolate and to unfold. And I have, when I went to open the back door, I met with the elephant in the room. And it's this collective energy that things feel really different. There is this apprehension, this elephant in the room. The energy that we feel from them is this uncertainty, it's this apprehension, it's this perplexing feeling of both fear and anxiety, and like with almost a level of excitement from the perspective that took me to open this symbolic, metaphorical back door. And so when I sat with that, when I sat with the elephant in the room, what is this apprehension? The words that came to me were, we are experiencing history like never before, and yet we are also experiencing history repeating itself. And this apprehension is not a new feeling. What I associate it with is that apprehension when we are on the brink of war, that apprehension, the whispers behind closed doors, in amongst closed circles, where people are whispering about it, but afraid to really acknowledge that it's actually a potential. And while this elephant in the room may not be a physical war that we are on the brink of, there is absolutely this all ever present knowing that we are on the brink of something big. We are on the brink of a massive spiritual war. And I just want to disclose to you now, before we go any further with this transmission, that I do not say this to incite fear. I say this and I share this with you because this apprehension is our invitation into our sovereignty. Sovereignty is when we can be our own rescuer, be our own source of comfort, be our own source of strength, be our own source of sustainability, our own source of wisdom. We are our source. We are our own source. And when I feel even deeper into this spiritual war that everybody kind of tiptoes around, we are in a deeply archetypal pattern, whether we are conscious of it or not, whether we want to voice it or not, whether we want to acknowledge it or not. What the underlying warfare is this belief in separation. It is this belief that we are separate from the world, and we see it playing out in every single system that is our current collapsing world. We see it in the division in parliaments, in society, and there is this unspoken pattern occurring where people feel like they should be taking a side, that they must take a side. That is an embodiment of this separation warfare, where we feel that we must take a stance, we must plug a flag in the dirt and reinforce the line in the sand. And it is a perplexing warfare that we are experiencing. Again, the words come to mind here, where we are experiencing history like never before, and yet we are also experiencing history repeating itself. Now, as part of what I have dubbed my initiation week last week, the archetype who I met with, who was at the end of that initiation process, who was inviting me into this initiation process, was the seer. And her energy is a really fascinating pattern. It's a really fascinating perspective, because what I have learned through my intimacy with the seer is that, having become so familiar with the Sacred 13, who I have shared with you here, she is the embodiment of all 13. She is the 14th archetype who is them all. And the way that I've been experiencing her is that simultaneous perspective. She is that ability to see through all things, all lenses at once. And I think for my experience with her, what has been the most profound with my initiation with her is the way that I've been experiencing these simultaneous perspectives. The way that I feel and experience the most human of perspective, with fear, with wanting to close down and contract and draw my line in the sand and draw my invisible force field, put up my guards, put up my wards, but simultaneously experiencing a deep, unending knowing of what is going on without fully knowing it. There is this real interesting merge between this human experience plus this unending knowing, this unending perception of everything being interconnected. And so when I, as an example, was experiencing this voice on the other side of this phone, who was really menacing, it was really unsettling, but then also having that perspective that no, that this, in all experiences, in all things, in all voices, in all perceptions, it is God, it is the universe, it is the cosmos. And so that willingness to feel this fear, but also to go and open that door, was profound. And so what I'm really wanting to impart with you today, it feels pinnacle, it feels pivotal, is that we embrace whatever that elephant in the room is for us. You may be attuning to, you may be feeling the same apprehension as if we are on the brink of war. And again, whether that is in a physical representation or purely spiritual, the bottom line is it is a warfare of separation. And as part of being a sovereign being, we must be willing to open the back door and to know that we are everlasting, and that whatever it is that we face, whatever the big thing is, whatever that elephant in the room is, that we have the capacity to be self-sovereign when we open the door. It goes beyond what we have been taught. It goes beyond what the opposing forces that we are seeing in our world would have us do or be or experience or trust. It goes beyond putting up our guards, where we are saying that what we know to be true is the only solid truth. It goes beyond the generational program that tells us that when someone else is different to us, that they are not safe, we must keep them at arm's reach. It goes beyond any societal programming that tells us that what is foreign to us, we must close our doors to, we must erect our walls, we must put up our barriers, we must keep it out, we must keep them out. It goes beyond anything and everything that we have been taught and know to be true. In fact, this metaphor, if you will, of opening the back door is where we are being invited into this new world, in being invited into this new paradigm where we know with all of our endless knowing that we are in fact whole, we are united. The metaphor of opening the door is us being willing to break down our barriers, to break down our guards, to break down the line in the sand. And so what I want to invite you today is to be willing to open up the back door and acknowledge whatever the elephant in the room is for you. Be sovereign in knowing without knowing how you know that this elephant that you will meet with is where you are holding this belief in separation. What we are learning inside of the program that I will be showing up for in just a few, within the hour, is how we are able to break down these limitations that have governed our reality for as long as we have been on this earth at this time and throughout generations. And we are opening ourselves to truly being sovereign. The powerful paradox of the law of correspondence is that we first recognize that everything is a communion. Everything is the infinite speaking to us, and everything is us speaking to the infinite. And so this belief of separation, this warfare of separation, is a belief that because it exists inside of this collective, it exists inside of us until it doesn't any longer. And it is part of being a sovereign being that us meeting with this belief in separation, it is doing it for ourselves, but also for the collective. And the more of us who become sovereign, the more of us who break down our walls, break down the barricades that we have placed around us for centuries, for generations, the more people will be able to experience it for themselves. They will find themselves on this pathway for themselves without even knowing how it is that it occurred, because that is where our self-sovereignty comes from. We really embody this self-responsibility for ourselves and on behalf of all. So what I want to do today is really acknowledge the elephant in the room, this belief in separation, as this fear of death. We see death all around us. There is so much of it, both physically, literally, but even more so symbolically. And in the literal physical manifestation of death, it is painful. It is where the human places the guards up to begin with. It is where the human places the walls up and draws the line in the sand and says, no, this is too painful. I cannot experience this. But when we meet with that fear, whether it be physical, literal, or symbolic, of death, then we become sovereign in the truth that death is an embodiment of the belief in separation, because we are not separate from it. We are not separate from death nor life. We are not separate from those who transition from their physical body back to the infinite. In fact, when we can truly meet with this belief in death, this fear of death and belief in separation, it is then that we truly are able to live from that sovereignty, from that everlasting and endless knowing that death and separation are merely an illusion. And the way that I would like to support us to embodying that sovereignty today is through intuitive intelligence tapping, where we can open the door to the elephant in the room, to our fear of separation, to the fear of death, to the fear of war, to the fear of unknowing, to the fear of all the things that we are afraid to give airtime, that we are afraid to speak to and of. And for this practice, when we engage in this practice of sovereignty, everlasting sovereignty, we will and are meeting with that collective belief, that collective apprehension, with that elephant in the room that is death, that is separation. And we do it for ourselves and we do it for all. We trust that by our coming together, whether live or on the replay, that we are truly sovereign, everlasting beings. So I invite you, if you are able to, join me in this sacred service, in this sacred leadership, to do the deep work of deep faith, to open this door and meet with the elephant in the room. So I invite you to begin tapping on the side of your hand, and throughout this process, simply repeating after me and following me the tapping points that we will use. And I invite you also to trust that your innate intuitive intelligence is united with this experience. And so if you feel guided to tap anywhere else other than where I'm guiding, please trust that. You are already sovereign and always have been. Let's do this, Michelle, my beautiful sister. Taking a deep breath and let it go. And repeating after me. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear of opening the door. And just notice where you feel that in your body as it shifts and moves out all the layers of your consciousness. Tapping on your collarbone. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear of facing the elephant in the room. Noticing how that moves through your body. Tapping on your chin. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear of death, literal, physical, spiritual, and symbolic. Tapping under your nose. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this belief that I am separate from death, from life, from war, from peace, from God. Tapping under the eye. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear of stepping into and being initiated into my sovereign self. Tapping on the side of eye. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear of the apprehension, uncertainty, resistance that I feel today for myself and for what's happening in the world. Tapping on the eyebrow point. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this fear that I simply cannot be sovereign because I am afraid to break down the walls. I'm afraid to break down the barricades. I'm afraid to truly know myself as God. Tapping on the top of your head. I now release all of my emotional attachments to this belief that it is not safe and never will be safe to be my own sovereign ruler, creator, and participant in my life. Tapping on the side of your hand. I choose to believe that I am a sovereign being. I choose to believe that I am safe to be a sovereign being. I choose to believe that I am a powerful sovereign being. I choose to open myself to know myself as God. I choose to embrace the elephant in the room that is my belief in separation and my fear of death. I choose to believe that I am whole. I choose to believe that I am both life and death. I choose to believe that I am God. Just placing your hand over your heart, taking in a deep breath in and out. Just feel that sovereignty coursing through your entire being, your entire consciousness, and feel it radiating from your heart, rippling out into the collective field. Bring to mind thoughts, feelings, memories, experiences that evoke gratitude, passion, freedom, and joy, and allow your innate ever presence to dance with this most potent of frequencies that is the elephant in the room that you have just met with and become whole with. Taking in a deep breath, filling your whole entire body, and as you exhale now, I invite you to maintain this openness throughout your day. Allow it to percolate within you. Drink lots of water, stay hydrated, and just be conscious of that elephant in the room from this point onwards, that it is not something to run from or hide from or barricade yourself away from. It is your invitation into your sovereignty. It is such a pivotal moment in time where we are experiencing history like never before, simultaneously where history is repeating itself. And this is where we make the change. This is where we are bringing in a new history as sovereign, everlasting beings. It has been my absolute privilege to serve you, to lead you and with you. And I'm so grateful for those of you who have joined me live or will catch the replay, who have been willing to meet with the elephant in the room. So much love to you all. And I am so grateful. So grateful.